State Farm and DJ Dramos from Life as a Gringo know making smarter financial moves today secures your financial freedom for a successful tomorrow.
Now we have a level of privilege that our parents never had. So what do we do with it, right? How do we utilize the opportunities that we have that they don't, right? And a lot of that is educating ourselves on how to not make the same mistakes they did.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. State Farm, proud sponsor of My Cultura Podcast Network.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, medical, or mental health advice. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the podcast and are not intended to malign any religion, group, club, organization, business, individual, anyone, or anything. I'm Sarah Edmondson.
And I'm Anthony Nippy Ames. And this is
A Little Bit Culty.
Cults are commonplace now. From fandoms to fads, we're examining them all. We look at what happens when things that seem like a great thing at first go bad.
Every week, we chat with survivors, experts, and whistleblowers for real culty stories told directly by the people who lived through them, because we want you to learn a few things that we've had to learn the hard way.
For example, if you think you're too smart to get sucked into something culty, you might be prime recruitment material, and who knows, you could already be in a cult. If you're not aware of your programming, you're probably being programmed, so keep listening to find out.
We'll talk about all sorts of topics on the show, but be aware, this podcast might contain stories that could be alarming to some of our listeners, so please check our show notes for more detailed descriptions and take care of yourself.
Subscribe to our Patreon for Thursday bonus episodes, Q&A, and all sorts of exclusive content. That's patreon.com/a-little-bit-culty.
Welcome to Season 7 of A Little Bit Culty.
Sinking down to the depths of the ocean, hanging on to it, my love. If I let go of it all, I could leave, but I know.
This is probably the most overdue podcast in podcast history, maybe?
In the history of podcasts,
Yeah.
Yep.
This podcast is overdue even before we had a podcast.
Correct. This
When
podcast
did she
was
first slide into your DMs? When
Whitney
was that?
Cummings, our guest today, our esteemed guest and friend and incredible comedian and actress and mother, slid into my DMs in September of 2020, September 29th, and said, okay, wow, I love you in a healthy way. You're a warrior, badass goddess. Would you come on my podcast? We can fly you and cover a hotel if you don't live in LA, blah, blah, blah. There's a bunch of other stuff. But I called her back. I had taken an Ativan because this was a very stressful time when The Vow was airing in September of 2020. And I think I recall having a very slurred conversation. I'm not a big proponent of Ativan. It helped me through a very stressful time and was the beginning of a long friendship since September of 2020.
And then COVID happened. We couldn't go do it. And we started our podcast.
Yeah, we never were able to go.
And she's on our podcast first.
Yep, we beat you, Whitney. We beat you to the punch.
Well, she came to Atlanta. That was kind of...
That was helpful.
Yeah.
She was here doing a show, and I said, I see you're coming. We want to see your show. We've been to another one of her shows in Vancouver, which is amazing. She's hilarious.
She's a force.
If you don't know her work, right, as a comedian, check her out.
She's awesome.
I just stare at her in awe of what she's able to do on stage. And
Let's go through her routine, how it was like. First of all, I noticed it when she was in Vancouver. She came in and she's like, you guys want to come backstage? I was like, you don't need your prep time. She's in there kind of like stretching out, reading it. She's
putting
like,
on makeup.
What should I say about Vancouver? Goes out, bangs out her show, goes home. And this is, mind you, while she was getting a show in between while she was shooting something in Toronto. So she went boom,
She's
boom.
a machine.
And then she did the same thing
She
in Atlanta.
comes here. She
comes in with her boyfriend.
Who's awesome.
Throwing olives back, before the show. She's like, oh, time for me to go on. And bangs out her show. I'm like, wouldn't you have been freaking out
We
before?
recorded this podcast in the hour and a bit before she's going on stage in front of a sizable audience. If it was me, I'd be like, I need to meditate, I need to get in the zone, get my hair and makeup done. She's just like, she's such a pro. So this conversation is definitely not our normal format. It's.
But I think it's Whitney Cummings too, right?
Yes.
So.
And we had a lot of things to talk to her about, specifically culty stuff in Hollywood. We talk about other things too. And there are many tabs unclosed.
For the OCD listener out there, there's a lot of tabs that are unclosed. And she said we can close them when we go on hers.
So we're going to have to circle back on Good For You, her podcast. Please do check it out. Totally different than our podcast.
Bop.
She's amazing. Please enjoy our totally tangential and entertaining talk with our dear friend about culty stuff in Hollywood, Whitney Cummings.
Enjoy.
I don't even want to talk about cults. I want to know about you guys. Like, how is life and how is a baby? And
Oh my gosh, it is so wild. I have a 10-month-old. You know, it's interesting. This is maybe how we start this, is I was 39, comedian, childless, prime vulnerable for a cult. If I had better Wi-Fi at my house, I think I would have gotten involved. It's interesting because I've been thinking, because I was like in this kind of search for meaning, kind of existential crisis after the pandemic. During the pandemic, I tried most of the drugs and none of them fixed anything.
ketamine?
I did the ketamine nasal spray. I've never done straight ketamine.
Me neither.
DMT?
Never done DMT.
It's the only one I'm curious about.
People love it. Is that Molly?
No, that's the frog. I think it's the frog one.
The frog.
I don't.
Because there's Bufo. There's Neil Brennan is a great person to
Only
talk
because
to.
it's quick and it's over.
Excuse me. Don't talk about my sex life like that. Sorry, that was wild. Ketamine nasal spray with oxytocin.
Yes.
And it only lasts like 30 minutes or so, and you forgive everyone. I mean, I didn't realize how many resentments I was just walking around with, because you think about the people that hurt you and you're like, oh, I have to forgive them. And you're like, wait, what about the people that were there when that person hurt me? I'm mad at them too for letting it happen. Like, I didn't even realize how much sort of like crystallized anger I had.
Is that universal, that forgiveness is the thing that everyone goes to, or is that just yours?
That's a good question. I think it's part of it. And I already was like, you know, I'm in this like Al-Anon 12-step program, but like, so I was already on some like, we forgive others not because they deserve forgiveness, but because we deserve peace.
Yes.
So it's like I had already kind of had that in my, you know, brain. So I think maybe when you're trying, for me, what happened was all the things I couldn't get to stick, stuck. So whatever you're trying to get to stick might stick.
So what you get intellectually is permanent, so to speak.
Like if you're like, I need to work on boundaries and I can't solve it. I can't figure out how to draw this boundary. And then you do it. And then all of a sudden it's like magically like whatever your block was. That's what happened with me.
And it stayed that way.
Permanent.
Yes, I believe it's permanent. I actually was like, I have to stop because I'm starting to like forgive my abusers. I'm like, hurt people. And if someone abused they were abused too. I should, you know what, that poor thing. I mean, I was almost
That's a slippery slope.
It was almost too
like,
much
yeah.
empathy. I know, I was letting people back in my life that were like really dangerous.
No P. Diddy.
No, I stopped going to the free golf parties. So that, and then you kind of get to a point where you're like, okay, like I can pay my bills. I, you know, have done all the healing I can do. Both my parents died, you know, now what? Then I started thinking about like what people call like the God-sized hole, you know? And like, you know, when you're a public figure, which you two now are, there's this thing that happens. And by the way, I think this applies to everybody. If you run the local Chipotle or if you manage everyone wants something from you. You know what I mean? There's always some hierarchy, whether it's in Hollywood or podcasting or whatever. So, but even if you're like the big guy at the local car dealership, people are going to have a predatory, you know, need something from you. And I kind of was like, I would love to have a community that like, we're all there for the same reason, but they don't care what I do. And I just like, you know, want to connect with people about something bigger. I don't know. It's just kind of like a thing. And I was like, all right, am I going to explore like church? What am I doing? What's the plan?
Good thing I wasn't an NXIVM right then. I would have just plucked you out and put you in.
Well, here's the thing. I'm also obsessed with the neuroscience of like cults and religions, of like productivity and cooperation make dopamine, you know? Like it's a big reason I make sure I'm still always doing chores. Like I love doing chores. I love being productive. Like, you know, look, our 12-step program's a cult? That's a question for you guys.
We actually did an episode on it, and it wasn't a good enough episode to air because I think we have to be really solid with that because some of them I think are great. I think it depends who's running it.
Of course.
Yeah, but there are inherent problems with the whole structure, I think. But also it's helped so many people. So
you could go to 12-step in LA and the one in San Diego can be like
totally different. And there are going to be
crazy.
certain people that take advantage, but it is kind of written, at least in the Al-Anon steps, that there's like no concentration of power. Like people change roles every 2 months. It's all volunteer basis, you know, whatever. But you find yourself like, when I first started sponsoring people, I found myself being like, I'm just the lord of these.
Yeah.
You kind of feel it. You're like, I'm the boss. But then we have these things, wait for the question. You never give advice. There's all these kind of...
I wouldn't be able to do that. I like to give advice.
It's really hard. It's really
You
hard.
do.
I'm going to start another podcast. It's called Unsolicited Advice.
Yes, please.
And
Right?
she's just gonna
is
gonna follow us around our house.
But I'm obsessed with unsolicited advice because I don't know what to ask. Like when I was just pregnant and having a kid.
I think I texted you, like, could I give you some advice?
Just tell me
Honestly,
because
you
I don't
should
even
just
know what to
speed dial
ask.
her.
I don't like. Please just tell me what to do. Like I like being dommed. That's my thing
Is this
about
true?
cults.
Yeah.
I like being dommed because I'm so dominant in my work life that in my personal life I'm like, please just tell me what to do. Please just make the decision.
Yeah, that
please
would've-
I just want to follow you through the airport. I always say to Chris, like, just walk. Can I just please just follow you?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's funny because I haven't really talked about this much, but you guys know I was rejected by Scientology, right?
I vaguely remember that you tried. Yeah, no, I do.
I'm not laughing at
You know, they passed on me, right? I get to Los Angeles. Okay, I grew up like on farm. I spent time living in an apartment in DC, back and forth, whatever. Didn't have anything.
To LA.
No, sorry, DC and Virginia. Lived on a
Okay,
farm in
yeah,
Virginia
yeah.
with my, like, never had stability, never had,
Oh,
family, never had, and this is who they,
Parents
prey on.
divorced? Is
Parents
that-
divorced.
okay,
I mean, come on.
Okay.
Yeah, you should. That's obviously.
Okay, grow up. Okay, let's just be an
Sound like
adult
my mom.
about this. Can we?
Sound
I'm
like my
sorry. And so I just never had any kind of stability. I was very lucky that, I got to grow up around animals. There was a lot of abuse in the home when I was living in Virginia, and I was able to just like go out, as a kid and like sleep with the horses, and there were 14 dogs. So I was like, I really appreciated the way that dogs and horses, the herds and the packs are very honest. They're very direct. There's a hierarchy. It's just, I really appreciated that order and that directness. They forgive very quickly. You see horses, like the lead mare will say, like, get out of my space. We'll set a boundary, totally fine. And then everything's over.
All that and horses?
Horses, yes. Horses teach you, like, that people pretty much respect you as much as you respect yourself. Like, people take the cues from you of how to treat you, kind of thing. Like, I learned so much
Interesting.
from them that I was like, I want to be in a herd. I want to be in a pack. And as an adult, it's kind of like, well, humans don't really do that. I'm not going to be like a sports fan or a politics person. So like, I guess I'm going to be like, cult sounds good, and I had such a bad experience with religion, growing up. I went to Catholic school. That'll do it. And also there was so much hypocrisy in my home. We would go to church that was like, don't lie, and then my parents would lie. And so I was like, it all felt very performative and like uncomfortable, and I didn't get it. And I come to LA and I'm like, come from not having money, and you go to LA, like you've been, like,
Yeah.
it's kind of a shithole.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to Hollywood to escape my circumstances, like the glitz and the glamour. And you get there and it's just like homeless people with machetes. You're like, this is not what I
brutal.
thought. It's like stucco buildings that you're sharing an apartment with four
It's
people.
pretty vapid.
Yeah. And then a friend of mine, so the way Scientology used to work, fascinating, is back when there was kind of a very clear trajectory of someone's movie career. It used to be pretty predictable. Like if you got one studio movie as like the third friend or the sidekick's girlfriend, then you would get this publicist and the machine would start. You get a great publicist, you do the fashion shows, and then you'd get the talk shows, and then you were in the studio movie system, and it was kind of guaranteed you become a star on some level. Yes, sir.
Are you going in as Whitney Cummings actress, or are you just someone who's just curious about the curriculum? Like, because there's a distinction there.
To
of like-
Scientology?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Were you marked? And
I
then,
was
like,
no. I had a friend.
So you're a rando?
Jennifer Goodwin. Okay, so she gets a movie
Yeah, I know who
called
she is.
Mona Lisa's Smile. Okay, and she's brilliant. It's Julia Roberts, Maggie Gyllenhaal,
remember,
Kirsten
yeah.
Dunst, Jennifer Goodwin. She comes out of Boston
Mm-hmm.
University. She's amazing, and it's clear that I'm like trying to be a comic, running around, just being a maniac, $40,000 in debt. Like I'm not in that, but I'm going to a place called. This is gonna. I'm not scared of Scientology.
No, me neither.
I'm
No,
going to a place
we've
called.
pissed on that
By the way,
planet.
come
For me.
Do
Yeah,
it.
Do it.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, you know that I have this whole thing where I did have a manic episode after my mom died because I went off birth control and Prozac in the same week and started
shit.
microdosing mushrooms. And I did set up a phone call with a maritime lawyer to find the Scientology ships. I'm just fascinated by the business model.
I did not know that.
I'm looking to pay a little less taxes. It seems like a lot of these cults have figured it out. But
go offshore.
Yeah.
But they go offshore. And the stuff that they're able to get away with offshore is obviously wow.
yeah.
So I had
Just 30 miles, I think, or something like that.
Oh, really? I think, yeah. And there's a reason, like, when you see, like, the Cannes Film Festival and stuff, all the billionaires are on boats.
Yeah.
Instead of at the 6-star hotel. Like, why aren't you just in the hotel looking at the beach? Why would you be in the ocean looking at the because you want to be a creep. And so I had, incidentally, known someone that went into Scientology. I mean, I'm 21 years old. And we have, like, the same publicist. We're going to, like, stupid thing, I'm going to Buffalo Exchange, like exchanging my stuff for like a BB dress to wear. I mean, we're like nobodies. She had a boyfriend that was born into Scientology, and we were friends. And as she started by going to the gym. So it was like she's like, oh, I just go to the gym at the Scientology Center.
Scientology has her own gym? I didn't know
But
this.
she's not in Scientology.
Okay.
She's just going to the gym. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. They have a gym? Like, sick. And then she's got water. It's just Scientology water. She's drinking from a water, lithium, I'm not sure exactly what's in it.
Blessed by Elron.
Is that it?
I don't know.
And then, so then I'm like, it should just be Kool-Aid. Like, it just should be actual Kool-Aid. And so then she's got these vitamins she's taking that are like,
With niacin.
It's niacin,
yeah,
right?
Yes, yeah.
so then she's taking, and I'm like, this is like this thing is like a GNC.
Yeah, it's a health
Look
complex.
at this thing. Yeah.
They're
This
doing
is something-
saunas?
And then doing all this stuff. And then she's not hanging out as much. And then she's not taking my call. So I did have that background, right? I had known that. She went into it. And I was like, okay, whatever. Didn't think much of it. So then Jennifer Goodwin, she's in a big studio movie and is great. And I'll not say this actress's name, although she is famous as a Scientologist, asks Ginny to go to brunch, right? And she's like, do you want to come to this brunch with me? It's at this address, something Hollywood Boulevard. It's not like a restaurant or something, of course. So I go, we drive into this, it's like a castle. You've seen it on Franklin?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is Hollywood.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah.
I made it.
Yeah.
Whatever this is,
Really?
I'm in. This bullshit, like, $600 studio apartment I have with roaches down the street, this is Hollywood. Like, I've arrived, like, I'm here. We get out. They take your car, by the way. They take your keys, take your car for like 3 hours. You don't get your car back. Like, you can't go out and say, like, can I have my car back? We go to this brunch. And so we go in, and by the way, I'm $40,000 in debt, like, I don't whatever. And we go in, and I don't know if you've ever been to the Sizzler, the brunch on Sundays. They have pudding at the salad bar, cottage cheese. They had the separate, what are they called? Merino cherries?
Maraschino.
Merino cherry. I was like, yeah, thank you. We're at this, I'm at Salisbury steak. They've got, I'm like, yes, what do you need?
Sizzler
Blood,
steak.
do you need my retina?
What would be your hook to getting into a cult?
Brunch, pudding, chocolate pudding in the bar. They have sweet tea. They have Arnold. I'm like, yes, what do I do? And then
Sweet
the guy,
tea would get me.
Giovanni Verbisi's there. The guy from Lost is there. I'm like, say no more. Like, how do I get into this thing?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they take you on this tour. You can start living there right away.
Living there?
Living there. They will give you an apartment. They will give you a job. Like, it is so appealing. And you know what I mean? It is why I'm like, yes, please. Yep, great. I'll live here. And they were like, they were trying to get to Ginny. Meanwhile, I'm just like, where do I sign up? I'm available. Like, what do we do? They've got it's gorgeous inside. They have a hospital. I see the gym. I see the water. They also have their own hospital. I don't even know what goes on in there. I don't know, the lobotomies or something. I don't know. And then they were not interested in me. They were seeking out, Ginny, obviously, because she was a big movie star and friends with another movie star that was in there. Didn't want anything to do with me. I'm like signing up for the pamphlets. They never sent me a pamphlet, like nothing. There was but I was also going to this theater called the Beverly Hills Playhouse, which is like a feeding, I didn't realize it was a feeding system for Scientology. And that acting school's whole philosophy, I always found it so weird, is they would I think you can get away with pretty much anything. And the way you get power is to convince someone else that they have power, right? Mm-hmm. This is what,
Part of it, yeah.
It's like 101.
Yeah.
Going like, you have the power to change your life.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. You have the power to change your life. And the thing was always like, oh, you had that casting director, meeting today and it didn't go well. Write them a thank you note. Go by and drop, it gave you something to do. That's the most cringe thing you can do is go by a casting director's office after you've already bombed an audition and give them a gift. That's psycho and creepy. Yeah. But it was always that. It was always some there was always a solution. Instead of just get better at acting, it was write a thank you note, write in a journal. Right. And then there was little groups they would be in. But the instructor was always so wildly inappropriate. And I didn't understand what was really inappropriate at the time. I came from such an inappropriate home. But it was a lot of what's going on with your sexuality? In front of people. It was humiliating someone in front of people to create a Stockholm syndrome and creating a problem that didn't exist under the pressure of an audience watching in a weird way.
No, sounds like a lot of acting classes.
Probably. Yeah. Probably, to be honest. And to get the love or approval of this deity acting teacher. And it was what's going on with your sexuality? What happened? What happened when you were a kid? Tell us. And then people would just start sobbing. And it was just
gave me flashbacks to so many of those classes. I was in a very culty acting class before NXIVM, and I left because it was culty.
I didn't leave. So I'm in on cults. I'm
Yeah.
just looking for the right one.
No, we have to get you out. I was thinking about this earlier. How do we get you out of LA? I feel like it's time.
Oh, I'm trying. I'm
Yeah.
trying. My
Or even-
guy has kids in California. The cult I'm in is California.
Yeah.
I give them 30% of my money.
Great segue.
It's totally ruining my life. It's a total con. Like Gavin Newsom is my Keith. It's like a nightmare. But I know it's a con job. I cannot get out this moment. But I'm looking.
Where are
other
you
places.
where do you think you guys
We're
will
looking
go?
Pennsylvania, where Chris is originally from. Virginia, Texas. Look, Austin is where a
Yeah.
lot of comedians have gone. You know, I love it there.
You've
but
got
it's,
friends there.
yeah.
I've been meaning to tell you. I was going to text you. I'm saving it for this. I heard recently you say that you are a people pleaser, and I didn't know that about you. And I am also a people pleaser. And my therapist recently just said, because I tend to overcommit, and that's why I said to you, like, if this is too much for you, like, please tell me, because I say yes to things I shouldn't. She says, if it's not immediately fuck yes, like if there's like, yeah, but like, then it's a no.
If it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
Yeah.
And then look at your motives.
Yes.
Why are you doing it?
Why
Are you doing it? Yeah.
Do you
What are
feel
you getting
bad?
out of it?
You feel like you should, like
if you're doing it out of obligation, if
Yeah.
you're keeping score, if you're doing it because you think you should.
Yeah.
or you
It's the
feel-
best thing that's happened because I can just ask her instead of trying to talk her out of it.
Yeah. Here's the good news for our relationship
Mm-hmm.
is that, and that's why when you were like, can you get me something? I was like, no. I know
Mm-hmm.
I know what you're doing. I do it, but because I love you, I'm just going to take this off your plate and be super direct.
Yeah.
I've been in ACA, Al-Anon, Codependence recovery for about 12 years, and the good news about me is that I never do anything I don't want to do, and
Great.
I always tell my friends anymore.
Yes.
I always tell my friends that, like, you never have to worry about me. If I want something, I'll ask, so that you don't have to like
Right.
Yeah.
perseverate and like, how can I help? And and it's also like literally like in my program, a lot of my bottom lines are like no gifts. Only one holiday gift for someone. It can only be $100. Like no responding to people because you need to help them find a doctor or a dentist while you're driving.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like that, like because a lot of us codependents, like we derive our self-esteem
Yes.
from our usefulness to others,
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's like a big one. So it took me a long time to realize, though, people pleasers, we call it, this is actually what kept me going back to codependence, is because we're pathologically thoughtful. Someone said, like, and I was like, whoa, that's like because sometimes I just need I think this is a lot of the reason that 12-step programs work for me. I love a platitude. I love a hurt people. I love an oversimplification.
Yeah.
I love you're in a relapse if you're doing the 3 M's, mothering, micromanaging, martyring.
Rules.
What's that?
Rules.
Yeah, but like if they rhyme, even better.
Yeah.
God doesn't mean a guy in the sky. It just means good, orderly direction. Love it. Fear, or what is it? Fine. When someone says I'm fine, fucked up, insecure, neurotic, emotional. Because fine is not a real thing.
Do you know about Biff?
Give it.
When someone's being hold on, if someone's being toxic with you, and to respond with brief, something. I'll text it to you later. It's about basically
With
Bruce-
bitchy, immediate,
I can finish that.
fighting.
So I'm sure we can come up with our own.
something brief, something friendly. Like thank you. Like if someone gives you some bullshit instead of being like getting into it. Like I didn't say that, or like thank you for your response. I'll get back to you shortly. Like brief, something. Friendly and informative, brief. I'll send it to you later. But Biff is really helpful.
That's like, it's like HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Like
Yes.
if you're upset about something,
Yeah.
wait, am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Because people pleasers, a lot of times we're taking care of everybody but ourselves.
Yes.
But what I really heard that resonated is people pleasing is a form of assholery.
Oh.
Because what we're doing actually is we're implying that you can't do it yourself. You need me. The arrogance of going like, well, you need
Go
my help.
on, Whitney.
Like you couldn't exist. Like how did it's someone said in a meeting once.
Podcast just started.
that someone said in a meeting once, and I really resonated with this. She goes, I went to the Great Wall of China. She because we don't take vacations. Fun is not something we can really do. We need to be productive. That's what our fun is. When we're having fun, we feel guilty. We feel anxious. We want to control other people having fun. Or like, how are you having enough fun? I got the wrapping paper at Christmas. I'm picking up the thing. Is everyone having fun? Like we're putting I know we're the same person.
Yes.
And so someone has to run the world, okay? Someone has to get it all done.
Look, it's tongue in cheek, totally.
Of course.
Because I will say, fuck yeah, you're way better at that than me.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm like, I got no problem with it. But then there's other times, and I'm at the point where I'm like, that's your force, that's your lane. Even if I want to do it, I think you're the better person for it. The only time I get kind of is don't do it for our kids. Let them let them go do their thing. Don't make their lunches. Don't enable them. Like, you can enable me all you want.
Give them the dignity of their own experience so that they
Yeah.
can be independent
And
on their
so-
own, because that's so that they can build self-esteem.
Yes.
Because if we do it for them, we take away their ability to have
But
self-esteem.
all this, I'm a champion of. I support, and I tongue-in-cheek give Sarah shit. But
Yeah.
to your point, yeah.
It's always like
It's-
the thing of, like, they say Al-Anon, ACA, codependence were the exploding doormats. As long as codependence is not leading to resentment, as long as you're not going, I just did this for, like, when you're helping people, as long as you're not keeping score, and 2 weeks later you go, I did all that, and you're not even gonna, and
I
it's like
totally do
some
that.
surprise trap.
Well, that's rare.
I don't do it to keep score, but then if I feel underappreciated and it's not reciprocated 2 weeks later, then I go, wait, like
And it's-
I did that for you. And
I've
you,
done
like,
all this, and
yeah.
he's
Totally
like, I didn't ask you
reasonable.
to.
Yeah, it's
Totally
like-
reasonable.
Hey, Culty listeners. As you probably know, Nippy and I are working on a manuscript for our first book together. And as you probably also know, maintaining control is important to us. That's why we've decided to produce our book with the Self-Publishing Agency, or TSPA. Unlike traditional publishing, where you're often left waiting for months or even years to get your story out, the Self-Publishing Agency lets you take control of your timeline. You'll have complete creative freedom with insights and guidance from pros in the publishing world. So if you're like us and you have a story or a message that's burning to be told, we highly recommend TSPA as your go-to partner. They offer everything you need, from expert editing and eye-catching cover design to marketing and distribution strategies that really make a difference. They make the entire process seamless and inspiring so you can focus on what matters most, telling your story. Go to theselfpublishingagency.com. That's the SELF publishingagency.com to start your very own publishing journey today. Enjoy. This podcast wouldn't even exist without our amazing, supportive, generous patrons. Come find us on Patreon. We are at patreon.com/littlebitculty. Go there for bonus episodes, live Q&As with past guests, exclusive content, and lots of other goodies. Subscribe now and help us keep this podcast going. That's patreon.com/littlebitculty. And now, a brief message from our Little Bit Culty sponsors. And remember, when you support our sponsors, you're supporting this podcast. Did you know that a healthier lifestyle is just a breath away? I am so excited about our newest sponsor. It's called Lumen, and it's the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It measures your metabolism through your breath. And then the app lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored advice to improve your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep, even stress management. People, I feel like this is the missing resource I've been looking for in my life right now. I really need to understand my metabolism, which has changed so much. This little device, which is so cool, it's this tiny little machine that you can put in a pouch in your bag and bring it with you and travel with, and you can breathe into it anytime, and you can get a sense of where you are in your day with your metabolism. It can also track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause and adjust recommendations just to keep your metabolism healthy through all those crazy hormonal shifts. So you can keep your energy and stave off cravings. I'm particularly loving how you can take a picture of your meal and it will upload and it will tell you what else you need to be adding to your diet, especially for me right now, trying to get the protein that I need, and gives me some other meal suggestions and tells me which of my proteins and carbs and fats are off and what I need more and less of. It is fascinating. So all you do is breathe into the Lumen first thing in the morning for tailored advice. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals to learn what's going on with your body in real time with the help of Lumen. So if you want to stay on track with your health this holiday season, go to lumen.me/culty to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/culty for 15% off your purchase. Lumen makes a great gift too. Seriously, this is like the perfect stocking stuffer. Get one for you and someone you care about who's also really into health. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. We appreciate you so much. Well, based on the festive holiday music I just heard at the mall, I'm going to say that it is officially holiday season. And while I do certainly love this time of year, all the gatherings and travel and things, events, Christmas lights, and holiday hoopla can also mean neglecting myself. That is why during this time of year, when I'm already doing a lot for other people, therapy feels like the greatest gift to myself. It means prioritizing my needs, my mental health, my Epsom salt baths, my boundaries, even with a busy schedule. So if you're thinking of starting therapy this holiday season, give BetterHelp a try. BetterHelp is therapy entirely online, making it convenient, flexible, and suited to everyone's schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to be matched with a licensed therapist. And if it's not the right fit, BetterHelp will make it easy to switch therapists at any time for no additional costs. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/culty today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/culty. Happy holidays. You've heard from our sponsors. Now let's get back to a little bit culty, shall we?
I just watched, boomers living as long as they're like, this was no one has a blueprint for this. Like our life expectancy used to be like 50 max.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're living to like 100. And everyone's like, what are we, what are you going to do? Just throw them in a,
2 lives.
What are you going to do? And there's something really unfortunate about the fact that a lot of us, like, when you turn 40 or you become an adult or you have kids, this is when you first get to have like an adult relationship with your parent. You kind of get to meet them for the first time as adults and clean up the mess. That was what was, I think, really tragic about my parents having strokes so young and going into nursing homes.
My mom had a stroke. It's so funny.
What's that?
How old was you?
I was 27.
Both had strokes?
Same year. Yeah.
What?
So my dad was totally butterfly effect in a hospital for years, actually close by here, Savannah. And then my mom was in a nursing home with half of her body not working for about 12 years.
10 years ago. That's crazy.
Wild. And then
So
she
hard
just
to watch.
passed about a year ago. It is, and I say this as a white woman that can pay my bills. So not trying to get pity ever, but there is, I think this could help people after I've gone through this. Like there is a very specific type of torture that is watching your parent slowly die in front of you. It is because they're embarrassed. When you start parenting your parent, it is a very specific form of torture. Yeah. And I really had to, I went crazy after she died. Like I didn't even realize how angry I was that I didn't get to have that 10 years because I was always worrying about the years that should have been the most carefree or celebrating my success. I just felt guilty. Should I be visiting more? Should I be going more? And she's just like, and I tried to do home care. It is a fortune. Dude. Tried to do home care, but she's embarrassed and she's in denial, as she should be. That's the other thing. When your parents are incapacitated and they're like, I'm fine, I can walk, and they can't, you're like, thank God you're in denial, but we're a million miles away from each other. And now I have to lie to you. And I have to pretend with you. And then she was already overcoming alcoholism and stuff. And then she has to be on all these meds. Well, she didn't overcome.
My mom. That's why
I'm literally dealing with this right now.
Should we 23andMe this? But and she was, had alcohol issues, part of the stroke. She wouldn't go to the doctor. This is another thing with Al-Anons. My mom, ultimately, yes, alcoholic, but unrecovered Al-Anon. We're the ones that never go to doctors. We're the ones that don't go to the dentist. We don't, because we're taking care of everybody else. Yes. And we think we're being nice, and then we have strokes at 50, and then everyone has to take care of us. Were we nice? Kind of not. That's the thing about people pleasing is we think it's so nice, but the whole thing about program is like, the way to take care of others is to take care of yourself, right? And because
if you're being nice to cope with what's going on with you, you're not really being nice for what I find, like with my mom, like she was loving me for her and not sensitive to what was going on with me. And I felt it. I felt like she related to me in a way that was like, that's not close to like, who I am. She doted on me in a way that didn't feel like love, and I had a wall up. And I was 15, 16.
This is so big. And
I was like,
it
rude, but not trying to be.
I've talked about this with my guy, because, and just in addiction in general, because all these are some kind of addiction. Thankfully, ours aren't.
Our parents are the programmers.
Ours aren't drugs,
right?
alcohol, whatever. Maybe it's social media. Maybe it's helping people. Maybe it's money. Who cares? But it blew my mind when a therapist that specializes in childhood trauma, family dynamics, and codependence said, like, the parent-child relationship is a one-way relationship, one-way caretaking. Like, you are not it is inappropriate to take care of the emotional needs of your parent. That's emotional incest. And my mom was incredibly histrionic, maybe borderline. I'm not a doctor, went through horrible things. That generation of women, we're the first generation that has any shot in hell of breaking these cycles. We have to have so much compassion for the people that came before us, because they were like smoking cigarettes at school. It was like madness, right? Yeah. They had no tools. But the emotionally caretaking, my mom would cry a lot when I was younger, and I would upset her. You know what I mean? If I asked for something, it would overwhelm her and stress. I was, and I got a sense.
Siblings? You're one of how
That's a
many?
whole,
Okay.
other thing. Yeah, older. And then so I have a bunch I've never met. We're not doing 23andMe.
Okay.
And I didn't realize it was weird to not emotionally caretake my parents. I was taking care of my dad's ego. I was taking care of my mom's feelings. Like I had to be perfect so that no one would get upset. Like I learned at a very early age, like you need to be perfect. You're taking up too much space. And these people just like, the disease of Al-Anonism where everyone's trying to caretake everybody in ways that my mom would be up till 3 a.m. wrapping presents for a bunch of people she didn't even like. She didn't even like, you know what I mean? And it was like, she was always in a frenzy about something and trying to make people like her. And something that blew my mind, and now that you guys are like, famous now and you've, have internet comments and I find so much freedom in the idea that like everyone has made up their mind about us. We're not changing anybody's mind. Because when I'm sort of like, I want this person to like me, I'm like, they've already made up their mind about me before I've walked in the room based on their childhood circumstances, their ancestral trauma. We're all kind of a confluence of who we actually are or what we're projecting. I mean, assuming we're actually being authentic when we move through the world. And then the other person's projection, like what you think about me, like has like 2% of who I actually am. Like, I don't know who that
freeing.
I don't know who that person is that you like or don't like. So I can't, there's something kind of like amazing about that, I feel
Well, it's
like.
also, you're relating to an avatar. And so I had this awareness, like someone sent me something that someone had said about Sarah and I on Reddit. And I didn't even know what Reddit was at the
Which
time.
is people only go to Reddit to be negative.
To be negative. It's the bathroom wall of social media.
Love that.
And so
Love it.
I went there and I was reading it and I was kind of feeling the burn. That face, your face gets hot and your solar plexus start to go. And then I was like, that's not even close. And I was like, this is an avatar. This is an avatar that has my likeness that's taking a beating right now.
Yeah.
It has nothing
But it's also
to do
like,
with me.
you know what you're doing when
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
being negative about someone before you,
For sure,
do it
for
now.
sure.
It's like, I just need to make myself feel better. So it's like, am I the bully if someone's bullying me and I'm going, why are you bullying me? It's like, you're just bullying me so you feel better about yourself. This is one
scratching
big
an itch.
circle jerk. Yeah. It's
Do you
like,
post and ghost, or do you like interact?
I kind of like, I go back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go back and forth. But here's something I did want to say about the codependence
Yeah.
thing, and we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
It's just my Asperger's is so wild.
You have a bookmark to close. Yeah.
Bookmark.
Yeah.
No, this
He
is-
always says close the windows.
Yeah.
He's like, you have too many windows open.
Yes.
We need to close some of the
Close up
windows.
them, yep.
Which is that the theme I think that could be interesting for this episode is like control. And a big thing with Al-Anon, ACA, codependence is we never had control, and we did whatever we had to do to feel we were in control, whether mine manifested in eating disorders, it manifested in completely isolating away from humans because I couldn't control humans. I didn't understand their value system. They were erratic. They were hypocrites. They lied. I grew up around a lot of like denial bullshit. Like, how are you? Fine. I'm good. I'm good. How are you? A lot of like, I feel like you guys hate each other. And they're like, no, we're good. No, can you pass this?
Toxic positivity.
Totally.
Yeah.
But it's like, I felt it. And then I was like, when you're a child, you don't know your parents have flaws. It doesn't occur to you.
Right.
You just assume you're crazy. So I was like, I guess I'm just crazy because I couldn't like read social cues. I was diagnosed with autism, but I was like, I beat it. But I was like, am I the weirdo that can't communicate with you guys? Because I feel like this is dishonest communication, which is why I was like, I'm going to go live in a barn, dude. But then I started having little collections of things like cosmetics. I would have little things, would clean my room obsessively. Then it became like eating disorders. Then it became a certain like sports, like I could not leave. Then it became like an OCD thing of like I had to count a certain amount. And it was really all about control. And then you become an adult and you're like, okay, what can I control? And then, a big thing about program is like, the main prayer is God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And like, I had to write down things I couldn't control. Like, it like blew my mind that I couldn't change someone's like childhood with my love. It like blew my mind that I couldn't get someone sober. It was like, no, just give me a minute. Like I initially went into program to learn how to get someone sober. I was like, all right, what are the tricks?
I actually think that Keith stole a lot from AA because that was a big part of it. It was
So
like,
is Scientology.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
It's all the same stuff, right? Like what would it mean if you can't control someone else's emotions?
Detach with
Yeah.
love and, whatever, clean up your side of the street, focus on you. I mean, what I love about program is like, I love the idea that everything's my fault because at least then I can change it. And it's blameless inventory. So it's like, for me, it's like more like, oh, I should have had a lower bar of that person's behavior. Oh, I should have removed myself sooner. Not like that person yelled at me and that person threw something at me. It was like, well, I knew that person.
Yeah,
You don't project maniacal intent.
Well, you don't blame because
Yeah.
blame is an addiction that nobody.
It's It sounds like you're basically saying, what, like knowing what I know now, what would I do differently versus, which is a fine line between it's my fault. Like,
and I can't control this person. I can control my action.
Yeah.
Actions.
I can remove myself. I can alter
and my proximity to this person.
Yeah, that you can control.
Because it's a lot of like, I just have to remove myself, but I am addicted to doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah, that's a good awareness that a lot of those programs will give you. That's on you,
Because
right?
growing up in erratic, dysfunctional, in order for alcoholism to be present, alcohol doesn't have to be present. That's the other thing, just chaos. You're like, okay, I'm gonna go get my dad's attention. And you go up and you try something, it doesn't work. And I remember going up to my dad and trying to get his attention. I couldn't get it. And then I remember going, that didn't go well. Like regroup. And like I went out again, he was watching SNL and I like said a joke that I saw. And then he would watch Rodney Dangerfield and I would say the Rodney Dangerfield joke. I was like, I gotta,
Was this the beginning of your comedy?
Kinda. Making alcoholics laugh is like, was my childhood, it's my adulthood. Here we are. Right. So I think that a sense in good cults, successful cults, give you a sense of control. Like that idea of you're going to go here and this is what to do, this is what not to do, you know.
And a path, whether it's Scientology, the bridge to freedom, or us, we had the straight path, especially as an actor, where you're like floundering. There's no, although you did say at the beginning that there was like some sort of semblance of a path in Hollywood, but in general, you don't know, there's no rules for sure. Like,
it was a way for them to just bank on someone that might be making a lot of money down the line or something. They would go after those people. They would go after the really, really vulnerable or the really, really successful, you know, is the trend that I noticed. But I think that this is like, you know, what you guys are doing is like more important than ever, because I think people are feeling like they have less control more and more than ever. Yes. I mean, look, I'm sure the Civil War was probably, you know, but you didn't know what you didn't know.
Well, also, there's not structures in place. I mean, we're still, the Civil War, we're still expanding and trying to figure out what's what. Like, we don't have structures. So, and the structures that we grew up with traditionally that felt safe are now vulnerable in a lot of ways. So that's where I think a lot of this stuff, I mean, when we were going through our shit, I was like, oh, fuck, everyone's going to think we're fucking crazy. I went through that shame spiral of like, I can't believe I fucking
Dude, I watched the documentary. I was in on the cult.
Yeah.
I was sold.
I get it. But to find out it wasn't.
I was just like, I'm not going to play volleyball at 2 in the morning. I'm not.
Well,
I never did. I did once or twice.
You don't know. You might get
I was too attached to my sleep. They said I had control. Ironically, I was always getting shit for my control issues. Did you know that?
Whoa.
Yeah, you're right.
That's the best way to control someone, to gaslight them into saying they're too controlling.
Yeah, that's why I wouldn't get promoted. I had to work through my control issues and my what they called like me disease, which is Nexium's term for people pleasing or accommodating.
It's a good racket. It's good. It's a good racket. I mean, here's the thing about Scientology. It makes sense until they're like, and your kid's not allowed to be on a medication for seizures, but also in LA, there's all those psychiatry museums everywhere. I'm also the first to say, like, a lot of psychiatry is really gross and bad, and a lot of therapists are not good, and a lot of, you know what I mean, and a lot of like talking about your problems over and over again is not good for you.
It manifests your problems more.
Talk therapy, I had to stop for a while because all I was doing was strengthening the neural pathways of how hard I've had it and how bad this was, and it like made me obsessed. Like I remember I went to this new therapist who was like, you can't talk about this person anymore. It's over. And I had to wear a little rubber band. I did no complaining for 28 days. If I did, I had to start back at the beginning. No talking about this ex for 28, because it was just, it was re-embedding my obsession. Yeah. And so I'm the first to say and then psychiatry, we are over-medicated for sure, but I know a lot of people that lost their lives because they stopped taking their antidepressants. I don't know. Again, I'm not a doctor, but it's very appealing to someone that does want to question everything. You know what I mean? And in 12-step programs, we have step, 4 and 5, which is you write out sort of like all the mistakes that you've made and it's 5 and 6. And you admit it to someone else. You admit your wrongdoings to someone else. We don't record it. We burn it out, but it's just a shame release. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like the auditing thing, it's like, gotta point to it. Like but then you're a criminal now because you're recording them and whatever so that you can blackmail them later. Because the idea of going like, I cheated on this person and the person's just like, all right, next. And you're like, wait, you don't think I'm disgusting? You don't hate me? And then your sponsor's like, yeah, I've done that. We've all done that. It's like when you start going like, oh, I'm not terminally unique. I'm not broken. Like everybody does this, and releasing the shame, because shame is what drives the maladaptive behavior. So it's like everything Scientology does that I know of, besides like whatever the aliens and shit, you're like, yeah, that has a point. That has a point. How did you manage to make it criminal though? Wait, so rape's not illegal? And like, what? Yeah. But I never heard about that stuff until like Twitter. People weren't like colluding. Like Scientology, when I moved to LA, didn't really have a bad rap.
Yeah, when did it start getting a bad rap?
I guess it was maybe Leah Remini. But I don't...
Also, Tom Cruise jumping on the couch didn't really help.
You know what? That was probably the turning point.
We were still in Nexium when that happened, and Going Clear came out, and I hadn't watched it yet. But I remember thinking, well, if they think Scientology is a cult, I mean, like, he's happy. Who am I to say?
Yeah.
Like, why? Because that's was sort of my defense of Nexium. Like, who are they to say, like, we're happy, I'm living my best life, fuck off.
And I still, if I'm going to be honest, I still kind of, and tell me I'm wrong, this is probably not the podcast to do it on, but going like, well, because I did watch the TikTok cult one, and it
the
just
dance
like
cult, yeah.
broke my
Yeah.
heart because they're kids, you know? But like, if I'm like, if you're 40 and you want to go to Scientology, you know what? As long as you're not bringing children into it, I'm sort of like, what would be the alternative? Would you be drinking?
It's case by case. Like,
it's a good way.
Yeah.
A lot of people can go there and get sober. They can't get sober anywhere else.
Listen, all these things have good parts of it. Even the TikTok cult. There's like, they learn how to dance and they have a place to stay.
When
Great,
it's said and done,
you know?
you're going to be rubbing elbows with people who are abusing their power. So
Some people get-
ultimately, that's going to be presented to you, and you're going to have some sort of struggle to resolve about like, this is going on.
Yeah. But
What
that's
do I
part
do?
of culture. The first couple steps sound great,
Yeah.
right? That's kind of the idea.
That's the idea.
the buy-in.
There's always a hook.
And
There's
then
always
it's
the
like
buffet.
This is my thing with every religion. Is I guess ultimately my cult is saving money. It's I don't understand the difference between saying I feel better, I have a community, which we're wired for this. I mean, the cults
sure.
really capitalize on the fact that we're all so disconnected. We're living in apartments, we're not making eye contact and getting that dopamine. We don't have relationships. We're so isolated. We're all so low on serotonin, and then writing that check, like that's where I'd be like, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's a weird. That's where I'm like, I'm going to give
that's
you
what they're
a
after.
percentage of my. I guess they also, if they get you when you don't have any money, you're like, well, 30% of zero is zero.
Yeah.
If I'm a millionaire because of
that's
this,
your point.
I'm giving you 30% of $1 million. That means I have, $700,000. It's I guess it's easy to just keep rationalizing.
What you said when you were talking about going into Scientology in the castle, I'd imagine that's what it's like for the young TikTok dancers. Like, it's just you now, going into LA and not having a community. They get a place to stay.
Yeah.
They have everything
That's
covered, and all they got to do is give 10%, and then it's
And Dad's
20%.
telling me I can't do this.
Yeah.
It's kind of that simple
It's
sometimes.
the individuation.
Yeah.
Something that my dad made a lot of mistakes. All of our parents did, I'm sure, he was sick and suffering. And he said something to me once that I think is a really big part of I've never felt like I need to fit in. I've never wanted to fit in. I've never had a lot of respect for like what everyone else likes. My dad was always very like, he was very intense about grades, very intense. Not a great parent necessarily, didn't have a lot of love for me. I didn't feel a lot of love, but I think on some level it was very awkward to him that I was a girl. Like he was awkward, with me. And it was just sports and studies. And I think on a lot of levels he thought, and he said to me once, what he
Nippy,
said,
it's Nippy, yeah.
he's like, you're going to have to work twice as hard to get half as far. He said it. He would always go, life is not fair. People are not going to take you seriously. You're going to have to be twice as good as everyone. And he would always say that. He was always saying, he would wake me up. I mean, this might be child abuse. He would like wake me up and quiz me on spelling words and be like, da, 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 da. And I was like, what are you? And he's like, you don't know when the test is. You might be hungry during the test. You might get a distraction. Someone's going to, you know what I mean? Like he wanted me to be able to do everything forwards and backwards. And, as I became a teenager, you start becoming a girl, you start dating. He was just like, didn't have much of a connection or relationship. We were kind of allowed to smoke in the house. His thing was just do it here. Whatever you're doing, just do it here. Which was kind of took the taboo off it. I don't think that was his intention, but you're like, well, I don't really want to smoke weed if you're going to let me smoke weed. Like that takes all the fun out of it. You know what I mean? So it's like he'd be like, if you're going to buy beer, let me just get it. Because if you do it, you're going to get it right, And so he would kind of have beer sometimes. And I remember he said one time, and I'm sure everyone, maybe all people have a version of this with their parents. He said, look, I know you're going to drink. I know you're going to smoke weed. Like, I know all this is going to happen. And if you just call me and if you get in the car with someone who's drinking or on drugs, you'll never leave the house again. But if you just call me, I will come pick you up, no questions asked. And there was always that like, hey, this person's been drinking. He's like, 4 hours later, he would show up as like some hooker. But the point is, like, there wasn't a like, when I got out, I wasn't like, I need to be wild. Like he took the taboo, maybe just because he didn't want to have to discipline me off of it. So it's like kind of like in Europe, they don't have the same drinking problems because they kind of start them a little bit younger. There wasn't this, and I was reading in this parenting book, Hunt, Gather, Parent, that when your kid breaks something or does something bad and they tell you about it, you don't freak out. The first thing you say is, thank you for telling me. That's so that they never learn to keep secrets from you.
Yes, so important.
You know what I mean? It's such a small thing that I never would have sort of thought of. So by the time your kid is out in the world, they're not susceptible to something that's giving them freedom and individuality because they always kind of felt that.
And speaking of secret things, this is a pro tip, unsolicited advice for you for
Please.
5 to 6 years from now.
I will listen to this podcast constantly. Please start
I'll
unsolicited
send you all the
advice.
parenting ones because it's so important when they start getting coached and you're dropping them off to like learn t-ball or whatever. And it's hard to imagine, but like imagine a coach is like this, you know, Henry's got a special skill. I'm going to like privately coach him. And next thing you know, there's like all these stages for grooming of small children. Yeah.
You know, I have a gun in my car. I mean, I'm not, because I was groomed by a theater teacher, me and like a friend of mine, and it was just so like all that shit is so wild.
You have so many culty stories. When we first met, when you DM'd me and the vow would, do you remember what was happening?
I'm in the Nexium documentary cult. I mean, you guys are, you're
That's
my
right.
cult leaders.
That's right.
It gave me meaning.
That's
It gave me,
right.
like, I was like,
Do you remember
No,
when you
she
were like,
called,
you
like, right when
called
we
and I
found
just
out.
taken an Ativan? Do you remember that? And I was like, I'm so happy
I was
to
like, you're
meet
my
you.
leader. Like, let's do this. Like, what are we moving into a house together?
One
Like,
of my
what's the-
biggest regrets was that it was COVID and we had kids and I couldn't figure out how to come down and be on your
We got to
podcast.
FaceTime. We FaceTime with Amanda Knox.
By the way, I was just on
we
hers and she
interviewed
was
her.
on ours.
She's
And I just
so
love her
great.
so
She's
much. Thank
amazing.
you so much for that
Amazing.
introduction. I've been meaning to tell you, like, I actually learned a lot from reading her book. I could cry, actually, because it just, I didn't think, you know, her story is so different than mine, but we have a lot of weird kind of parallels, and especially with, like, the ages that we were when we got into these things, and then her, like, because she was like, I'm an adult, I'm doing my own thing, and I know what, I don't need a lawyer, and then she got in so much fucking trouble, you know, and then that's, you know, her part that she sort of had to come to terms with, like her own stubbornness, right? A lot of people telling me that when I was that age. I'm like, I know what I'm looking at. You think I can't discern what's good and bad? Fuck all y'all.
Can I ask you something?
Right.
One question I have, I don't want to forget, is about if you're seeing an increase of kind of like culty things coming up, whether it's like crystals or makeup or soul cycle. I mean, the way you see people behave at, like, I don't know if it's soul cycle. It's like, you gotta get maybe that's more of an addiction than a cult per se.
It's all consuming, those things.
Yeah, there's criteria.
Gives you an identity.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Like if you're seeing that more and
Yes.
more.
My whole kick right now is I recognize I see these things through a filter, and it's like people around me are like, Sarah, not everything's a cult. I'm like, fine, it's not a cult. It's
They're
just
a
toxic.
little bit culty.
Like it's a little bit culty. It's
Yeah.
amazing that title was our podcast before we even realized how many things were a little bit culty. And now my thing is I don't even want to use the word cult because it's so overused. Everyone's coming out of a cult, and it's just like kind of become too trendy. And like, let's just say, like, is this thing healthy? Like AA, you know, if it's healthy for you, that's great. If you're feeling coerced, if you're feeling like it's, you know, there's too much fear mongering in your group, it's not healthy for you. And that's something that like only you can know. And that also goes back to your own autonomy, which these groups may have taken away. And that's something you have to figure out. But yeah, no, we see it. Unfortunately, we do see it everywhere.
I think the term
And-
that we like better is abuses of power rather than a little bit culty,
Or-
because the
yeah.
precursor is always someone's going to be abusing their power, and they're always going to use some sort of coercive tactic to make you comply, maybe against your will, but you can leave and come back. You don't have like your all-in mentality, but like if there's consequences for you leaving, there's little red flags and
What do you make of
coercive-
sororities and fraternities?
Well,
We did do an episode on it, but kind of depends on the group, but generally
I'll
they're
tell you, I
problematic.
didn't join one in
Yeah.
college because I didn't want to take shit from anyone. And I didn't want to have to do what someone wanted me to do at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
because I was rushing. I just, fuck that.
yeah.
I'm not coming to college so you can. First of all, I didn't want to hang out with the same set of guys that I was playing football with. And that was
Totally.
the fraternity. I was like, I'm not going to go to an Ivy League school and hang out with the jocks
Yeah.
only.
Yeah.
That was just like, you know, and I liked them, but I also wasn't going to take shit from them.
Yeah.
Like, I just wasn't interested in that.
It's also something that, and you have a couple employees, you have kids now. I guess for me, it's like, I don't have the gene to want to be in charge. I love performing. I love what I do. But like, I've been a boss of people and I hated it. Like I had so many employees and I hated having, it was like, I just wanted to be everyone's equal and I want everyone to like, you know. So people pleasers, like also punk rock as shit.
There's a danger to that.
Tell.
Okay. So what I hear is you have a power, right? And this is one of the things that I read recently. If you have a power and you're not using it appropriately, someone else will. Right?
yeah,
And that's just true. Someone's going to see, oh, Whitney's got this. I'm going to leverage this somehow.
Little fiefdoms start popping up.
And-
Yeah.
The way that they have access to that is they somehow leverage your authority or your power, which is earned based on your own merit, and they're using it and passing it off as theirs. So you can own it, see that it's there, and use it appropriately and protect it. But if you're not aware of it and you're not stepping into it in some shape or form, someone else will.
Is there a consistent, like, this is an ignorant question, but like pattern in the people that have been really successful cult leaders of like sociopathy or psychopathy or like a childhood thing, like didn't have a brother, mother,
really
whatever.
bad attachment style is what I've noticed as a non-therapist. It's like either mom or dad, like really
Well,
unhealthy.
with the guys, it's normally
I
the
also
mothers.
wouldn't want someone to need me. I feel very smothered when I can't, you know what I mean? When someone's like, what do I do now? I'm just like, now you go do your, like, power seems exhausting. And like, there's got to be some bottomless pit of need for attention. And,
the wounded narcissist, like Keith
Well,
was
the
a wounded.
those people want power.
and you can't get love on your own, so you have to like con people into
Yeah.
it and trap them and trick them.
You can tell just by looking at him and his knee pads. He can't get love in his
Can
own.
I just, may I?
Yeah, go,
for
please,
it.
go.
Did the math work? I mean, did he invent a new math?
I don't think so.
But
I
like,
don't think so.
I
wouldn't know. I don't, my math is not good enough. I couldn't look at that and tell you.
So I have a confession. He was doing some equations and at end of a training. And
Wait, why though?
someone was
He's just showing
asking
off.
someone
He's
was
like, you play the
asking
piano and
him
you'd be like, ooh, it's so good.
someone
I don't know.
was asking him a calculus thing, and I looked at it and I knew it was wrong.
Really?
Yes.
I wouldn't. My math is not that good.
No,
I wouldn't have known.
Well, so the reason I say that is, if I knew it was wrong, I don't have a huge complexity in mathematics. I flirted with calculus at 18, was like, fuck that. But I knew what he was saying was wrong. He was talking about thermodynamics and how if water leaves a tank, and I was like, that doesn't really make sense. And I was just I left it alone. Well, I wasn't confident enough to call him on it, and I was like,
That's what he's banking on.
kind of afraid to be contrary to him in front of people. For more background on what brought us here, check out Sarah's page-turning memoir. It's called Scarred, The True Story of How I Escaped NXIVM, the cult that bound my life. It's available on Amazon, Audible, and at most bookstores. Highly recommend, of course, because she's my wife. And now, a brief message from our Little Bit Culty sponsors. Remember, when you support our sponsors, you support our podcast.
Well, based on the festive holiday music I just heard at the mall, I'm going to say that it is officially holiday season. And while I do certainly love this time of year, all the gatherings and travel and things, events, Christmas lights, and holiday hoopla can also mean neglecting myself. That is why during this time of year, when I'm already doing a lot for other people, therapy feels like the greatest gift to myself. It means prioritizing my needs, my mental health, my Epsom salt baths, my boundaries, even with a busy schedule. So if you're thinking of starting therapy this holiday season, give BetterHelp a try. BetterHelp is therapy entirely online, making it convenient, flexible, and suited to everyone's schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to be matched with a licensed therapist. And if it's not the right fit, BetterHelp will make it easy to switch therapists at any time for no additional costs. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Culty today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Culty. Happy holidays. Did you know that a healthier lifestyle is just a breath away? I am so excited about our newest sponsor. It's called Lumen, and it's the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It measures your metabolism through your breath. And then the app lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored advice to improve your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep, even stress management. People, I feel like this is the missing resource I've been looking for in my life right now. I really need to understand my metabolism, which has changed so much. This little device, which is so cool, it's this tiny little machine that you can put in a pouch in your bag and bring it with you and travel with, and you can breathe into it anytime and you can get a sense of where you are in your day with your metabolism. It can also track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause and adjust recommendations just to keep your metabolism healthy through all those crazy hormonal shifts so you can keep your energy and stave off cravings. I'm particularly loving how you can take a picture of your meal and it will upload and it will tell you what else you need to be adding to your diet, especially for me right now, trying to get the protein that I need, and gives me some other meal suggestions and tells me which of my proteins and carbs and fats are off and what I need more and less of. It is fascinating. So all you do is breathe into the Lumen first thing in the morning for tailored advice. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals to learn what's going on with your body in real time with the help of Lumen. So if you want to stay on track with your health this holiday season, go to lumen.me/culty to get 15% off your Lumen. That's LUMEN.me/culty for 15% off your purchase. Lumen makes a great gift too. Seriously, this is like the perfect stocking stuffer. Get one for you and someone you care about who's also really into health. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. We appreciate you so much.
Break time's over, people. Let's get back to this episode of A Little Bit Culty. It's a good one.
I just am fascinated by kind of like the biological basis for cults. Like it used to just be like tribes, you know, like I'm obsessed with our willingness to be conned, because a lot of times someone's like, this thing is fake and da-da-da, and it's like, yeah, but a lot of people want.
I think what you're talking about, like, you take 1,000 people, put them on an island, it's not long before they're going to have some sort of hierarchy.
Yep.
And it won't be long before someone's going to be like, oh, I can abuse my power in this
And
hierarchy.
someone's going to be a slave. They'll be slaves. They'll be. It's like Stanford Prison Experiment,
Yes.
kind of
Totally.
101.
Do you know that Keith showed us the video about Stanford Prison Experiment?
Because that's his way of going,
Yeah.
this is bad.
Yeah.
And so you're like, well, he would never
hiding
do
in
that.
plain sight.
Yeah. Always hiding
do
in
we
plain
wanna
sight.
do the Cult of
Wait,
Hollywood?
Wait, I mean, we had a whole thing about the Cult of Hollywood, but the main thing that I wanted
Cult of Hollywood. Oh, interesting.
Just like, I mean, maybe we have to do a part 2, but like there's so many things about Hollywood, obviously, that are problematic.
Sure.
And you talk a lot about that in your pod and
Sure.
your comedy. And
The impression I have through going through rabbit holes is if you want to be in Hollywood, there's some sort of rite of passage for certain people. I don't know. Or they offer you something.
You definitely can't be a squeaky wheel.
And there's a
Also-
buy-in.
And the one other thing I will say is a lot of times, and I'm not calling it a conspiracy theory, again, I don't know, these just more distraction ones, when people
Yeah.
talk about adrenochrome, I get annoyed because I'm like, they're trafficking child actors on
Yes.
TV in front of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's help that. Let's stop
did you
that.
watch
The
that
Nickelodeon
documentary?
series.
Of course.
Yeah.
Let's stop that shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When people ask me, like, is Hollywood creepy? I'm like, this is a business that was built on the back of a 4-year-old toddler named Shirley Temple.
Temple.
Yes.
She was dancing and twerking on men, sailors at sea, no women in sight. There was no babysitter. There was no mom. Like, there were
Also,
no,
So
in the
gross.
20s and 30s.
she was she was the Margot Robbie of the 20s.
Yeah.
She was 4.
Yeah.
And if she was in a movie at 4, that means she was cast at 3. Like, what are we doing? So
Yeah.
I kind of go like, the adrenochrome thing, I don't know if it's real or not, but there's current people
Yeah.
Let's focus on that. That's
on
more
that.
important.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I get a little bit like, you know, and like, I'm not saying anything, Ellen, I don't know, but it was just like, I was always like, why are like toddlers dancing on the show? You know, I don't know. I look at the Giphies, you know, when you look through the GIFs and there's like a girl, like all this
Speaking of, look, P. Diddy. What
toddlers
the fuck?
and tiaras, and that's the other thing. So
Yeah.
I wish I had more cult information. I have snitch energy. I'm
Yeah.
like a big
Yeah.
mouth. They don't invite loudmouths to these parties. Everyone's like, did you go to a Diddy party? I'm like, I'm the worst person to invite
Right.
to anything where you need to keep a secret. I have like Tourette's, you know? So, but I do think that the music business
Yeah.
is a level of disgusting
Yes.
that I don't even know enough about it.
Right.
I think that Hollywood, like my experience, and maybe this is just my frustration and judgment talking, and I'm just being catty. I think it's actually the cult element is more like the nepotism of it.
Yes.
And the university. So you go to USC, and then you get this internship, and then you become
So there's a path.
there's kind of that. And then you're in the mailroom at CAA, and then you're an agent's assistant. And then, you know what I mean? There's a little more, you go to this acting school, and then you're, you know, I think it's kind of more like, what would you call that? Like, not a popularity contest. You know, it's like Angelina Jolie's amazing. I mean, she's beautiful. She probably would have got it. It's like her dad being John Voight and Jason Schwartzman. It's like, it's very hard to break in if you're not already
Right.
knowing
It's a
someone.
club.
And maybe that's every business. I just don't know, you know? So I think a lot of times what I see is when I go like, how did all these people get, they knew this part, or they got famous really young. You know, that's the other thing. You either have to get famous really young or you have to have some kind of connection. And not to say that the people that have a connection aren't good. They grew up around Hollywood. Of course, they know how to be good at Hollywood. Or
So there's a power structure. You're outside of it, and you have an impression that there's some sort of hierarchy to that power structure.
I think it's just easier to go like, you know, yeah. And look, it's if you right now were like, hey, my, you know, kid wants to work, I'd be like, great, yeah, I'll have him work on my podcast.
right.
You know what I mean? I think friends also just help their friends. I think
Yeah,
it's also
that's
kind of,
fine.
I think it's sometimes as simple as that. Like when, you know,
Sure.
people say that like there's not enough diversity on sets, which I completely agree with. It's like, well, all the line producers are, you know, white guys and they hire their friends, you know, and you're also not allowed to ask someone their race or age. That's illegal. So you get in this situation where you're like, well, how am I going to ask someone, hey, can I get a black grip? So it's like, I'm always the person going, can we just ask these uncomfortable questions? Like, how are we going to get people of color onto sets if we're not allowed to ask and find these people? So people, I think, just hire their friends, and then people walk on set and they're like, how come it's all these white guys? Like, because this is all they know.
Right.
Put other people in front of them. How are they going to?
Maybe so if you look at Hollywood, it sounds like probably comedies down here, then film, and then music in terms of like what's the worst? Or is comedy culty too?
I don't know. Comedy is I mean, again, we're throwing the word culty around.
Yeah.
Like, there is like the Comedy Store, the Laugh Factory, the Improv. I say it's more of like teams in a way. Like, there's something culty about it, but it's also our job. Like, you have to, like, is it culty that you're going to the gym every day if you want to play football? Is it culty? You know, it really is like, you have to be a part of this. It's us kind of looking for family, really,
Right.
but also just wanting to be around other comics.
So wait, is it ever toxic? Or like, did you see the Dallas Cowboy cheerleader documentary?
You know what? I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, check that out, because I feel like if that there might be a parallel there. Like, do you ever show up and see things that you don't like but can't say anything because you're afraid you're going to lose your job? That would be problematic or toxic or culty. Not now,
As
maybe.
soon as I see something weird, I'm like, I don't. The great thing about comedy is we don't keep secrets. That's kind of our thing. So when things do come out, everyone's like, what? Like, they managed to keep the secret from everyone? You know? It's like the Bill Cosby thing. That was when you're like, wait a second. Like, as soon as Hannibal Buress knew about it, he was like, what? This is weird. You know? I think that that's our nature, is we're the kind of like
Truth.
people that blow the horn. We're like, bah, 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 like, warning, like whatever our purpose was in the tribe, it was
Yeah.
to like, you know, be loud and annoying. That's kind of our thing. I don't think I've ever kept a secret. Like, I definitely, and I don't know if it's a culty thing or just a human nature thing, like, my people with so much power can get away with things for so long, at least before Twitter or whatever. It's like, I definitely heard jokes about Harvey Weinstein. I definitely heard stuff like that. But like, I guess maybe there was nothing I could do. I mean, I was on VH1. What was I going to do?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You have other
Like,
problems.
Yeah. Like, it wasn't even on my radar to even think about it, you know? And if he had called me into audition or give me a job, I absolutely would have done it and gone like, you know what? If you're going to use me, I'm going to use you. The best way that this person can do it, you know, give me a job. I'm a woman who's poor. Like, you know, help me. I don't know. Like, I'm a little bit like, let's, you know, so yeah. So I'm kind of trying to answer your question. I'm not doing a good
No,
job.
you are. This is great. Have you ever felt coerced or felt like you were not necessarily in a cult, because we know you weren't, but like in a situation where you felt pressured or like that there was undue influence? Is another term.
It definitely, I mean, what I will say is like that acting class, I remember, I was also the person that when my dad was like talking about Santa Claus, I was like, so we're not allowed to talk to strangers, but we're gonna have a stranger in our house tonight that has your handwriting. Like, I'm always kind of a like a weirdo. I think for me, like, the cultiness of whatever the 12-step programs has worked for me. Like, when someone's like, hey, you're gonna be at the meeting today, like, that helps me be accountable and helps me, you know. So I wouldn't say that. Things that I felt pressure, maybe it's this. I think it's more self-censorship. It's more like, was Anne Heche's death fishy?
Fuck, that was nuts.
Anyone else think that's weird? Like, I'll just go like, you know, let's just cut that. You know, I think it's self-censorship where I go like, it's just not, I'm not going like, I'm going to protect Hollywood. I'm like, it's just not worth the comment section. It's just not worth people thinking I'm crazy. And I think that a lot of powerful people benefit.
Yes.
Like the thing with Taryn Manning, I want to be like, people think you're crazy. Because when you tell the truth, a lot of times you sound crazy. That's how wild the world has gotten.
That's how.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think they benefit. Like, the squeaky wheel is always like, well, she's crazy. She's nuts. And so I really like to, Eric Weinstein talks about this, about the people who you, in case of emergency, you smash the in case of emergency button. A person who, when something's, you know, the election, whatever is going on, that come talk and everyone listens on both sides, kind of like Jon Stewart's one of them. Like, in case of emergency, Jon Stewart, like, it's an interesting theory. He's going to speak way more elegantly and brilliant about it. I always like to go, let me speak on the things that I'm actually qualified to speak on. Like, I don't think I'm being silenced. I think I silence myself a lot because I do know how quickly people might
responsible.
People might just go, she's crazy. And when I really am qualified to weigh in, no one's going to listen. So I like to kind of just go, like, you've seen it happen where people decide that they're political Avengers, and then it goes from this and then this, and then they're just cause of the weak people. And I'm big on like, you know, so I definitely do a lot of self-censorship because, you know, I don't want to be like a performative chimer inner if I don't know what I'm talking about.
That's smart.
Yeah.
It's also responsible too with like the platform that you have and how you build credibility.
Yeah, and it's also like, it's a business as well. You know, Olivia Munn is someone that like, we became friends because I was so impressed that she was in that movie. It was called Predator. This was a while ago. Cults, Animal Rescue. Big one. That she was in this movie called Predator. She's the star of this movie. The irony that's called Predator, again, hiding in plain sight. She finds out that someone that she's in a scene with had a history of sexually abusing a child. I don't know the exact story. Allegedly. It's not allegedly, but, you know. And she said, you have to cut the scene or I'm not doing press. And she just went all over the press. The movie had not come out yet. Everyone was like, no, please don't say it. Let's just let it air. And then we can, let's just get the movie out. And her cast wouldn't talk to her. Everyone was so mad at her. I mean.
That's Culty. Yeah.
It's tough. Yeah. She literally was just like doing these interviews like, I don't understand why I'm the one that is the jerk in this scenario. Like I don't.
Good for her.
I don't care. And it was so brave and it was so cool. And she was so calm about it. And I'm like, I wonder how many times that's happened and people have caved because not only is it whatever your reputation, but it's also your business. It's your boss, it's like, it's your boss and you're getting paid for a certain job. And like, that's a tricky thing. Sometimes I don't know if it's my job to just shut up and is this someone else's thing? Is this someone else's thing? It's like when the Crystalia thing happened, I was like, is it my job to check IDs at the door? I'm already having to work twice as hard to get help. Like, this isn't my job. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of times it's not about being in a cult. It's just about going like, I'm not getting paid to vet the legal records of everyone in this building. I'm not getting paid for any of this. I'm just going to do my job. And that must be someone else's job. I'm not qualified for that job, So I think that there's also people forget that Hollywood is just kind of a business too, and a lot of people just want to go to work and go home and go like, I just want to stay out of the drama. Yeah. Like I don't want this to be my Google search for the rest of my life. Yeah. I don't want to have to answer this forever. Like I don't want to be a hero by accident or villain, whatever. Animal rescue, big one.
Okay,
big one.
We have not covered that.
Yeah, animal rescue stuff. I mean, look, it's like I'm hardcore, like animal rescue person. It's for me, I learned like it kind of has to be, it's only public if I'm like, it's the last option I have to have leverage to get an animal out or to do what I need to do. But there's a lot of charities that are secretly cults or like money laundering schemes. I always say like, if I was a bad person, what's the number one thing I would do? First thing I would do, start a charity. Always. You have to pay people. You're like, this guy is something called Founders.
Budget.
See what I've seen, fascinating. If you look up Wildlife Way Station, I don't even know if it's all online, but this is when I learned about founder syndrome. And when you are told you're a hero enough, like you start with like, I'm going to rescue these animals. This woman started rescuing these animals and then she's taking $90,000 a month out of the donations. There's bears and dog crates. Yeah. She's rescuing dogs, feeding them to the bears. There's no water on the premises. She's wearing fur coats. She has zebra skins in her house. Like, it's just like, how did this go from
How'd you think of that?
This to this? I'm sure there was a couple screws loose anyway, because there's a little God complex that comes in with, I'm going to save this dog. I'm going to rescue this dog. You could also just open the door and it'd probably be fine for a while. When people are like, I rescued this dog. I'm like, okay, you picked it up.
It's like virtue signaling with dogs.
It's a little bit like, I am a hero. It's like, well, there's also like a billion more down the street. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit, I'm obsessed with just words like that and how they can impact. It's like, have you ever had a landlord that wasn't an asshole? And I'm like, we have to stop calling it landlord because it's like you're the lord of the land. Like it's a little too, you know what I mean? Too much pomp and circumstance for me.
It sounds like fiancé.
Yeah, it's like, I have cockroaches. I need you to get off the castle, please. Yeah, fiancé is a really good one too. So it's like, we rescue animals. This is an animal rescue. It's like, no, this is your hobby. And we get to give them homes, what I mean? And I have a lot of respect for a lot of people, that do it, but it does become this fascinating addiction where if you've rescued this many animals, I'm fascinated by people that believe because they're rescuing an animal, they can be mean to a human. You know what I mean? Or, you know what I'm saying? And you're kind of just like, how do you not see and it's a way to get power because you're like kind of, you're just using this animal to have power over people. And then it starts being like, well, I deserve this. I'm entitled to this. It's like.
Super culty. Yeah, they need an orange sash for getting their next animal.
And they can have access to you in a way that's like, I have to rescue this animal.
Authority.
I need it. And then you're an asshole if you're not, unctuous about it or, right away. And you can ask for money. And I'm like, well, I'll pay the vet directly. Well, I need you to wire it to me. Well, no, where's the vet that you're going to? I'll just call the vet right now and pay the bill. And like, you're not, it's like, okay, well, they're scamming me. It's fine. I'm just not going to go through, So I think that there's a lot of meaning that's in it. When I'm under the influence of rescuing animals, like I feel like I have a lot of meaning because I think, the bigger thing is people are always like, why animals, not humans? Because I believe that, this is something that I didn't originate it. Pause, Ed Stewart up at Performing Animal Welfare Society, he basically shut down Barnum and Bailey and took all the elephants. And you talk to all these psychiatrists about how the way children see us treating animals is how they will learn to treat defenseless, voiceless things in the future. So when we go to zoos, they're like, it's for education. You're just teaching kids to abuse animals. You're just teaching them that you can just like, things that are defenseless.
There's a Voltaire quote that covers it.
The way that we treat it will be judged by.
Yeah. You know it. Yeah.
Society will be judged by the way it treats its animals. Totally. Yeah. And the way that we can just shut off our empathy to something that, and just go like, this is for me to ride. This is for me to, take pictures of, or, And so I'm fascinated by that, like the next generation just seeing, the right, that. And there's a lot of like people in animal rescue that come from sexual abuse also, and it's like a projection of it. You're seeing this defenseless thing that can't send emails or remove itself. It can't choose. It's, it's kind of kids a lot of times just translates to like a toddler. I mean, animals, to like a toddler.
Tiger King must have been very hard for you to watch.
Yeah. I didn't watch it.
Oh, you didn't
But
watch
I did
it?
have to deal, I dealt with I can't say much about where the tigers are and stuff, but yeah, it's never, if anyone is touching an apex predator, lion, tiger, or bear, abuse was involved and the mother was killed. Always. No exceptions.
Fuck.
Is that right?
Mothers don't, are apex predators known for being like, here's my baby.
Right.
What do we know about mama bears?
Yeah.
They'll fuck you up if you come near their babies. So they have to be dead. Always. And if they don't get the first 4 months of breastfeeding, they're going to have degeneration in their spine. And so anytime you're pet holding cubs, any of that, they always die. They only survive about 6 to 8 months. And if they do, they can hardly walk. And, there's a place I work with. I posted a video of it. This bear cherry bomb at this place, lions, tigers, and bears. If you want to just know that here it is. If something says sanctuary, it's probably a scam. Like, here's the thing about cults. It doesn't say, like, join my cult. No one says that. Yeah. They say my organization. They say my studio, my program. My, you know what I mean? No cult's going to call itself a cult, right? Church, whatever it is. And the first thing they'll be like, we're not like a cult. It's like, so the name sanctuary is the number one problem. Is because you can call anything a sanctuary. There's no laws around it. And people don't know better. They're like, oh, this must be I'm helping, and that drives me nuts that people spend money thinking they're helping and they're actually supporting abuse. So sanctuaries, they just go out, like that white tiger guy, Black Panther white tiger, that guy that was on the Instagram and was like holding those all white tigers are inbred. All of them, they come from two tigers, all inbred. That's why they have the cross-eyed. It's all mothers and, sons and, dads. And it's like, it's horrendous. But I am fascinated also with the animal rescue stuff of how quickly we're able to just desensitize ourselves or tell ourselves a lie, of like an elephant being in a zoo. Like, what are you? I mean, they can't breed in captivity because they kill their babies in captivity because they don't want their babies to live. Right? They kill their owners. You see what's happening with the orca whales and stuff. This has always happened. We're just seeing videos of it now. Do you know what I mean? But the way we're able to tell ourselves a story of like, oh, that lion, they're all on drugs too. So I think that it's interesting when you go to the solution and there's corruption within the solution. You're just like, oh, no, So I think it's like there's a lot of really amazing zookeepers that are just there because they know that they can give the animal a good life, even they know it's in prison. So there's a lot of like good in evil, and there's a lot of evil in something that masquerades as good. It's like kind of my thing about like, it's not men versus women. It's the good men and the good women versus the bad men and the bad women. It's like, I'm fascinated by your take on Ghislaine Maxwell. Did you guys do an episode on it?
We've talked about her insofar as that like we had the equivalent of her in Nexium. Her name is Pam, and she died of cancer before we left. And we were talking to a psychic medium on our show because I want to talk to Pam because I think Pam knows things. She's dead. She died before, and there's 2 women who died.
So your question about Ghislaine is, what do we think of her? Or what?
Like, was that a cult?
Oh, yeah. It's a abuse of power.
Well, it used coercion.
Yeah.
So,
it's a lie. It's like, hey, come do this, and you're actually do this.
But like, what's her, like...
What's her kink in it?
I think she was under his thumb.
Yeah.
And I don't...
First red flag, anytime a billionaire is dating a brunette, something's off.
Yeah. Also, her dad was really powerful.
Very. He was in like, wasn't it like he owned magazines?
So
and
I've gone down some faux rabbit holes.
You and I should just share a browser at this point.
No, I can send you links.
Give me my links.
But the gist of it is supposedly he was working for Mossad, and then Epstein was going to take his place and then by proxy takes his fortune and have access to his resources, which set him up as someone who
has time for all this shit?
I love
Let's
you so
do
much.
more.
You wouldn't let me bring you a smoothie, which would make me feel valuable, but I did bring your present for your son.
But you're also like, you're enough. Like, I'm
Thank
friends
you.
with you. For
I
real.
know, but I like to
And
give
if I
people-
wanted a smoothie, I'd have one.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's so true.
I always, and I don't mean it in a mean way.
No, I know,
I
yeah.
always tell people at every venue I go to, I'm like, if I need something, I'll ask.
Yeah.
Like, I just want you to be off the hook. Do you know what I
Okay.
mean? And I know that, and it is a way of just going like, I want you to know that I just want to spend time with you for
I
you.
so
and
appreciate that.
I don't need anything from you except your
Except these little presents for
undying
your,
love and loyalty.
very
This is gonna be a-
small presents for your son.
Oh, this was actually a pinto horse that I love this. This is for me. This is not for my son.
You could decide.
You know that I want to get another tattoo. That's my first horse, which is a paint horse. These are my favorites. Oh my God, this is what is these called? Sucker things?
Pacifier with a mustache.
Binky with a mustache. It's
I was getting you small
Hitler
things.
energy mustache, but that's.
You can trim it.
That's just for the plane.
I love this touch and feel stroller cards. He's such a tactile little baby.
It's the age, right?
Ooh,
And you can play with that
yes.
Is he with you on this trip?
No.
Okay.
No, it's just like it wasn't worth messing up his sleep schedule. And I feel like, he's 10 months, almost 11. I feel like it's harder on me.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
just need to,
We're gonna have to come to
Woman
LA,
up.
and I
You
really
have
want to
to.
just hug him. And
I need
snuggle him.
all the advice.
And these are just for you, just because we would give you hats every time we see you.
Yes,
and lip balm.
I know I have the tie-dye one that
Do
I
you
wear
still have it?
all the time. Yes, of course.
Oh my God.
And I still have the Nexium Spirit Week.
Did you keep it?
What? Did I keep it? Are you
was like-
insane? You know how much that's going to go for on eBay? one day?
I
You
checked.
could probably sell it. Yeah.
I have one of
There's
the
some stuff.
original cult shirts from the Nexium.
His books are going.
If you ever want it back, I figure you guys will want it back at some point.
No,
It's like
it's
the
for you.
Spirit Week, the original
that
shirt. I won't even wear it.
I think
It's hanging in, my closet. I have the fancy shirts,
It's
t-shirts.
framed.
it's with your
framed.
fancy
I
shirt.
should frame
You
it.
should send it to him and say I'm a huge fan. Have him
In
sign
prison?
it for you.
Can he be visited in prison?
Let's go visit him.
Why not? What prison is it?
It's
in
in
Tucson.
Tucson.
I have so many questions. I'm going to Phoenix on December
Whitney
6th.
Cummings visits Keith
Why?
Raniere.
I'd love to.
Oh, he would love it. He would love it.
I just would. I bet he's fascinating.
You should ask him.
Like, what would you do differently? Like, why? Because my guess is he's like, I got fucked. I didn't do anything wrong. My
yeah,
guess
You
is
should ask him what responsibility he's not willing to look at.
Oh my God, you have to give me all the
I have a
questions.
whole slew of
Yeah.
questions.
How did you author this?
Should you have more of a people-pleasing disease, or what is it? A like-me disease?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should. He should have more of that.
Yeah. Let's do this
Yeah.
again one day.
I love it.
And then
sure.
come out.
And we're gonna watch the show, obviously. And,
Oh gosh, we'll come watch from the side or whatever. I just have to eat something before I go on
Please
stage.
do. Thank you so much for being here and doing this. It was like just
I don't
4
know
years
how
in the
you
making.
do that and go straight
I
on.
know, so wild. Well, I
amazing.
hope this didn't suck, and
It
we
was so
could,
good.
let's do another one.
I love it. Do you like what you hear on A Little Bit Culty? Then please do give us a rating, a review, and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Or even better, share this episode with someone who you think needs to hear it. Maybe they're in a cult. Maybe they're a little bit susceptible. Just share the love. Thanks.
She's a force.
She really is. Whitney, we love you. We love everything about you. And thank you for introducing me to that book about codependency. Codependent no more. I'm no longer codependent.
No,
Thanks
she's
to you.
not. It's great.
Sorry, who are you?
Leaving?
Whitney, thank you for initiating this friendship. Thank you for introducing us to Amanda Knox and for being all that you are. Bye.
Sinking down to the depths of the ocean. I'm hanging on to the weight of my love. If I let go of it all, I could leave, but I know I won't.
A Little Bit Culty is a Trace 120 production, executive produced by Sarah Edmondson and Anthony Nippy Ames in collaboration with Amphibian Media. Our co-creator is Jess Tardy. Audio engineering by Red Cayman Studios, and our writing and research is done by Emma Deal and Kristen Reeder. Our theme song, Cultivated, is by the artists John Bryant and Nigel Aslin.
In the dry states of the Southwest, there's a group that's been denied a basic human right.
In the Navajo Nation today, a third of our households don't have running water.
But that's not something they chose for themselves. Can the Navajo people reclaim their right to water and contend with the government's legacy of control and neglect?
Our
That's in the next season of Reclaimed, the lifeblood of Navajo Nation. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.